So welcome friends, what if Naruto forced to return Fem Haku movie? Wave Country Bridge. It all started out a rather simple week. First Team 7 had to track down Tora the cat again, after they gave the evil cat back to its owner, the fire daimyo's wife. Team 7 then requested another mission, but wanted a C-ranked one, after some discussion and lots of yelling, courtesy of one blonde-haired ninja in a hideous orange jumpsuit they had received the mission. After being insulted about their ninja skills from the drunkard they had to guard, Team 7 left the village and took to the road at a snail's pace, for the ninjas at least. Well, it seems to be more than the old man, Tazuna, had wished to travel at. After a while of boredom, most of the members were occupied with something: Kakashi with his little orange books, Sasuke with his brooding, Sakura with her questions about Wave and the swooning over the last Uchiha, Tazuna with his grand tales about how awesome his country was, and Naruto was being rather quiet for once, and nobody could figure out why. Not even Naruto really knew himself, it seemed. So after a while on the road they got attacked by two C-ranked missing nin from Kiri, the demon brothers, after they killed Kakashi and were going to continue had Sasuke, Naruto, and eventually Kakashi stopped them by knocking them out, with Kakashi praising Sasuke and demeaning Naruto for not doing enough. After that they questioned the missing nin and Tazuna and discovered that Wave Country was being taken over by an evil midget named Gato. Once they agreed, more like Sasuke agreeing, Sakura his ever-loyal fangirl swooning and saying how cool her Sasuke-kun was, Kakashi the ever-loyal Uchiha supporter agreeing as well, leaving Naruto no choice but to continue as well. From there it went downhill, mostly with the team getting attacked by a ranked missing nin, Zabuza Mamachi, also known as the demon of the hidden mist, after Kakashi got his ass kicked and trapped in the water prison jutsu, which forced Naruto and Sasuke to work together to free him. Once finally free from the prison, Kakashi was finally able to beat him back with the help of his implanted Sharingan eye, after the hunter nin came and took Zabuza's body away, after killing him with a few well-placed senbon needles. Once they made to Tazuna's house and met his daughter Tsunami, they left Kakashi in his room to heal. Once he was finally healed enough to walk, Kakashi finally did his job as teacher to his two re-aiming students and started teaching them the tree walking exercise, which they should have learned a long time ago. After they finally learned that and returned to Tazuna's house, they had the displeasure of meeting Inari, Tsunami's son, who seemed to brood almost as much as a certain gay Uchiha, who spewed a lot of bullshit about them not knowing suffering, which prompted Naruto to prove just how much he knew about it, making the civilians there rethink their opinion of how they saw the blonde ninja. After that Naruto met Haku, the hunter nin, in the forest after he destroyed it, and they told each other their stories before Haku told Naruto about precious people, making Naruto really think about it. Before Haku left, she told Naruto that she was actually a he, to which Naruto just nodded and gave his usual foxy grin, but in truth he knew Haku was really just a girl hiding. So after that, a few days later, Zabuza and Haku met Team 7 on the bridge and engaged in their fights, with Naruto showing up after saving Tsunami and Inari from two crappy samurai. Gato, sent after Tazuna's family, after seeing Sasuke die to save him. Naruto unleashed part of the Kyuubi's power and beat Haku fairly easily, but refused to kill her when she asked. But unfortunately at that point in time Kakashi was just about to send his Chidori attack into Zabuza's chest to kill him when Haku jumped in the way, hoping to save her father figure. As this happened, Naruto used his own and Kyuubi's chakra to push Haku out of the way and get himself killed in the process. So this is where we find ourselves, watching as Kakashi ripped his arm from Naruto's chest, not really caring about what happened to him. Unfortunately that was not so for Haku, as she ran to Naruto's side as he fell to the ground with a thud. This caused the girl to start crying as she held Naruto's head in her lap, slowly stroking his blood-covered hair as he slowly left the world behind. "Naruto-kun, please don't die, I just met you and don't want to lose my first friend." Haku sobbed as she watched Naruto slowly lose his life. "Ah, Kuchan, don't be upset and cry for me, amen, Otworth T, rs from a girl as Bodhi, follows you, just live hap, why go to Konoha, and you can have a normal life, tell T, he old man that you want to join K, Noha and he will let you." Naruto choked out, and with his last words, he closed his eyes and slowly accepted death. "Naruto-kun." Haku screamed as she tried to get him to open his eyes, but it didn't work. Slowly Zabuza made his way over to Haku and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry Haku, we'll do as he asks, it's only fair for you." Kakashi watched as his pink-haired student appeared with the Uchiha and made her way over towards him, to which he just drank over in shock as seeing Sasuke dead and quickly rounded on Zabuza and Haku and started yelling along with unleashing his killer intent. "Look at what you did. You killed the last Uchiha and now I have nobody left to teach. That's the best in the entire village and you killed him. He'll kill you for what you did." And with that Kakashi started to create another Chidori in his hand over for it to stop being created midway by Haku, yelling at him back with tears in her eyes, "He's not dead. Just in a death-like state, though I should have killed him. And why don't you care about Naruto-kun? You killed him yourself." To her horror Kakashi just smirked and shrugged his shoulders while he began pulling out the senbon slowly. Who cares if I killed him, he's just the dead last of the academy and can't even do the simple clone jutsu, nobody even cares about him. The Hokage may be upset for a tiny bit, but hell get over it, especially when I bring him Zabuza's bounty and you to be used a breeding stock for Sasuke. Zabuza and Haku were both in shock, not only had B not cared about his student, but also said he was going to finish off Zabuza and let the gay duck-ass hair kid rape Haku. They weren't going to just sit there and take it. Unfortunately neither had a lot of chakra, so they were at a loss against Kakashi, at least until they all heard a very annoying laugh. Looks like the demon of the hidden mist isn't all that great, losing to a bunch of kids and their teacher. Oh well, not like I was going to pay you. Gato smirked as he and about 400 mercenaries came out of the fog on the other side of the bridge. I think he'll even make that ice bitch of yours mine after I take over the village, making her scream my name over and over him. I think he'll also take that pink-haired girl over there, could probably turn out to be quite the looker in a few years, and pink hair is so rare really, quite exotic. Gato smirked, he had all but won this, all the ninja were tired, and the girls were just right for his taking. Soon both of them will be screaming my name, and after that it will be the Vil. Gato was interrupted by a huge killing intent that seemed to come from the blonde kid that still had not moved from where Haku laid him down. Chakra was flaring out all around him. Soon everybody turned to look at Naruto and gasped at what they saw. He had changed completely. Naruto's mindscape a few minutes earlier. Naruto awoke with a splitting headache and looking around. Last you remember he wasn't inside a sewer with ankle-deep water that was slowly rising. Deciding to venture forth to figure out where he was, he got up and started to try and navigate the huge sewer-like maze. For what seemed like hours to Naruto he finally found something, and that something was huge. In the shape of a giant gate that stretched into the darkness above, the gate seemed to be of a very pure golden color, with a simple piece of paper holding it shut on the paper, and the kanji for the word seal. Deciding to venture forth to see what was inside, Naruto slowly started forward only to stop after about 15 feet. All because of two giant red eyes that were staring at him from behind the gate. Naruto actually managed to react rather well to this and simply raised a hand and smile, "Hello." His voice, he found, sounded somewhat deeper and actually carried pretty far in this place despite his original thoughts. In return the red eyes closed for a moment before opened, though this time the giant being came closer to the gate, allowing Naruto to see a gigantic 100-foot-tall pure crimson fox that stared back at him, and to the surprise of Naruto, it smirked before speaking. At a deep voice thought if you listened, you could tell it was feminine of origin, so the jailer finally comes to visit its prisoner. About time if you ask me. The odd thing about the way it said that was that it didn't actually seem annoyed. In fact it seemed rather calm to the whole trapped inside you forever and forcing you to die when the human dies thing. Naruto in all his infinite wisdom simply turned his head to the side while staring at the fox. So, who are you? I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, ruler of all the Biju. Queen of Makai and lord of all demons. Now cower before me ninjin. The giant fox roared loud, which in turn caused Naruto to simply stutter out one word, Kyuubi. The fox simply grinned and was about to continue, but was cut off by a new voice to the side. Now Hikari-chan, we're not supposed to scare my former self, that is unless we need to make sure the big bad Kyuubi no Kitsune get taught a lesson as well. Both the fox and Naruto turned towards the area, which had previously been engulfed in darkness, but was now very bright. What Naruto saw shocked him. There standing in front of him was himself with a few differences. Instead of being the 45 Naruto was, this new person was easily 54. He also had a lighter version of his own blonde hair, being a mix between his blonde and white, which made him look like a miniature version of the Yondaime with his hairstyle. He also didn't have the 6 whisker-like birthmarks that Naruto did. The one thing Naruto really noticed was his clothes. He had on black steel-toed boots and some white baggy pants that had a lot of pockets for all kinds of things to easily fit inside. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt that went down to his wrists, and on top of all that he wore a crimson haori with blue, red, green, bluish yellow and white flames that seemed to be dancing around the bottom of the haori as it moved. The sleeves easily feel past his hands, keeping them from view. Resting at his side is a very elegant looking adachi. The blade is easily 3.5 feet long, with the handle being another foot long. To Naruto the blade is amazing, a dark black sheath with the kanji for water in blue, iron red, earth in green, lightning in bluish yellow and wind in white, all along it. The guards seemed to be made up of what seemed like red tails all woven together. The hilt was a dark black in color, with what seemed to be a fox engraved on it leading from the tails, as if they were attached to it. At the base of it all is what seemed to be a crystal was very clear. In fact he could actually see through it. Naruto and the Kyuubi both blinked and looked at the man for a few seconds before the Kyuubi simply lay down on its stomach with its head in its paws, in what seemed to be a rather submissive gesture from Naruto's perspective, and what the Kyuubi said next simply sealed the deal. No master, I just wanted to see if he could be scared, I apologize. That's fine, but we don't have much time to that can wait. The being nodded and walked into the cage to slowly scratch the Kyuubi behind its ear, resulting in some rather loud purring coming from the Kyuubi. During this whole thing Naruto had managed to keep his calm and cool, but now he was being ignored and it was annoying him a lot. Hey. What the hell is going on here? Where are we? Who are you? Why are you petting the Kyuubi? Why is the water rising? And why the hell am I here? The Naruto look-alike paused in his scratching which seemed to upset the Kyuubi if the low whining noise was any indication. He then turned towards Naruto and nodded, my mistake, I keep forgetting this isn't just a normal day. Well, starting answering your questions in order. First off, you are dying because of getting stabbed to save the ice princess from your sensei's attack. We are curing in a section of your mind dedicated to sealing of Hikari-chan here. As for me, well at least your potential. When you were younger and started to learn things that the honorable council thought you could use against them, they decided to put a seal on you, which resulted in sealing off 3/4 of all the training results you did. Those results are me. I'm petting Hikari-chan here because I enjoy it and so does she. The reason the water is rising it because you're dying, more it rises, more you're dead, and finally the reason you're here. Well, since you tapped into Hikari-chan's power here it weakened the seal placed on you, so now me and you can merge and you'll be able to activate both your bloodlines, which will save your life and in turn save the ice princess from being turned into the sex slave of the short fat midget. Any questions? Naruto just nodded along slowly taking in all the information, then decided to voice his questions to this other him. Why did they put a seal on me? Didn't the old man know about it and try to stop them? How can you just calmly pet the Kyuubi like it won't eat you? What do you mean bloodlines? If you know my bloodlines then you know my parents, right? Who are they? And how can I save Haku-chan? Is all you do ask questions? Kami, I hope I rub off on you more than you do me, right? This is the last time for questions, we're almost out of time. First off, as for putting a seal on you, it's simple, a dumb weak demon is better than a smart strong demon. Second, I don't think the old man knows about it because from what I've seen he seemed shocked when we stopped our training with him. Started to act like an idiot and wear those orange monstrosities you call clothes. The reason I can just calmly bet Hikari here is because about 3 years after I got bored of being here alone, I sought her out and naturally she's still having some of that tainted chakra in her, still tried to eat me. I beat her and thus according to demon rules or something she lost and thus ended up serving me as well. She's basically my slave, has to do things I say and all that stuff or else she suffers with punishments. Oh, I've thought up some rather interesting ones, especially when she takes her human form, as the other Naruto talked about his. Hikari somehow managed to blush under all that fur and Naruto was just getting annoyed at this point. Hey. Answer the rest of my questions already. Blinking a few times to get his thoughts straight, the other Naruto just nodded and resumed his answering. Yes, bloodlines, as in more than one. You have 2 of them, one from each parent, and yes I know your parents, they were Kushina Uzumaki from the former Whirlpool country. As for your father, well, Hes Minato Namikaze, but you know him as the Yondaime Hokage, and as for saving the ice princess. All we got to do is merge back together, you'll gain everything I did and the seal will break, giving you all my power, which is a lot by the way. You'll also get free access to Hikari-chan's power, seeing as you'll become the one she's a slave to, and you'll also get the Tagenso, my Adachi, which I've modified to instead of you having about 5 swords, legendary swords. You get one Adachi which has all the powers in it. Now are you ready? We only have maybe a minute before we all die, he said holding out his hand. Naruto, not wanting to die, just nodded and reached, grabbed the man's hand, and suddenly there was a bright flash of light. When it died down, there was just one Naruto standing there. He looked identical to the potential version of Naruto, however now he was slightly taller by an inch or two, lost all the baby fat on his face, and seemed his muscles filled out better, but the drawback to this. Naruto just fell to the ground clutching his head as he screamed in pain. This was the result of having lots of years' experience just crammed into his head all in one moment. Hikari, not liking to see her master in pain, simply glowed for a moment and shrunk down to her human form and ran outside the bars of the gate to Naruto and held his head in her lap. Slowly stroking his hair as he seemed to be calmed by her presence. After a few minutes, Naruto's pain went away and he saw himself looking up at a really beautiful girl smiling down at him. Her face was heart-shaped and she had 2 red eyes and unlike the Kabili form, seemed to be like 2 pure rubies on her face. Her hair was a dark glossy red that seemed to fall down her back in waves down to past her ass if she was standing up. She was wearing a small black skirt that barely covered her rear end and had 2 slits up the side held together by string and allowed him to see a lot of her legs, which she had a pair of black stocking going all the way up to her thighs, giving her a very sexy look. She also had a pair of small 2 maybe 3 inches heels on her feet. The top she wore was simply a black jacket that seemed to be strained to hold in her bust. It seemed to show off almost all of her bust, which is simply contained in a what looked like a black front lace-up bra, leaving very little to the imagination. The sleeves of her jacket had what looked like multicolored foxes. The last thing he noticed was that she had 2 cute fox ears on her head twitching slowly every now and then, also the 9 swishing tails that laid out behind her. All in all, it made her look like an angel for Naruto. "Master, are you okay? You're not hurt, are you?" she asked in a beautiful voice that reminded him of an angel singing. Naruto simply nodded his head, causing his hair to brush around her inner thighs, making her let out a tiny moan as he did so, blushing a very bright red too. Fine, it's just a lot of details to take in, Hikari-chan, learning about 2 bloodlines, all my skills, the new sword. Our relationship as well as all the knowledge that was sealed away." Hikari simply smiled and nodded and slowly helped him stand up, after which he stretched and popped his bones back into place. "Well then, time to go save Haku-chan and Zabuza. Oh, can't forget teaching Pinky, King of Brood, and the Scarecrow that attacking me is a bad idea." Hikari simply smiled at how her new master fused with her older master and his former self to make this brand new master for her. She was also hoping that the fusion would make him forget about punishing her for when he first got here. But alas, it was not possible. "Oh, Hikari-chan. Time for the punishment for you trying to scare me when I got here. Plus there are probably some other things I should punish you for too." Naruto just gave his usually foxy grin, which made Hikari wonder what kind of punishment she was going to get. One thing was certain, thought, it was going to make her feel pleasure and pain at the same time. She simply sighed knowing she deserved it and there was no chance to get away from it. Wave Country Bridge. There stood Naruto in all his glory, alive and well, but that wasn't the surprising part. What was the surprising part was his new look, how his body changed, his hair changed, his clothes changed, and also his sword which looked ready and waiting at his side. Oh, there was also the fact that he was floating about 5 feet in the air and had his eyes closed. When he opened them, the wind started to pick up and swirl about him, making it pick up lots of things from the ground and fling them all around, but the most shocking part was his eyes. They were glowing a bright blue that could easily capture a girl's heart. Slowly he started to float towards Gato and his ground of thugs and smirked, then he asked in a sickly sweet voice that promised lots of pain. "Want to repeat what you just said, midget?" Wave Country Bridge. "Want to repeat what you just said, midget?" Gato just sputtered some incoherent words while trying to get over the killing intent the light blonde-haired ninja was releasing, which was enough to make Zabuza start to sweat. All of his 400 hired mercenaries were also trying to overcome it, not an easy feat at all. Somehow though, Gato managed to get enough courage to yell out at his hired goons. "I'll pay you triple for whoever kills that blonde-haired brat. And triple for whoever brings me the ice bitch and the pink-haired one. You can do whatever you want with the rest of the ninja and the people in the village." His words managed to knock the mercenaries out of their shock and they all started cheering and yelling about how they would be the one to get paid triple. Naruto was not going to have any of that, so he floated down towards the ground in front of all the ninja and grinned. "Well, if that's how you want to play it, fine by me, it doesn't matter to me if you die here or die later on." Slowly Naruto drew his adachi, taking the blade, still in its sheath, out and held it in his left hand near the top of the sheath. His right hand rested on the hilt of his sword. "I'm going to give you one more chance. Will you stop and run, letting me kill you later, or will you stay here and die now? Think very carefully, it will be your last decision, ever," he said, releasing a large burst of killing intent. All of the thugs gulped nervously, except for one, brave or foolish, depending on how you looked at it. "That's just one kid and there are 400 of us, he can't possibly beat us and then we get to have our fun in the village. Let's get him," he roared and all the other thugs agreed and started to charge out blonde ninja, to which he just sighed, "So be it then." Without them all even moving 10 feet, Naruto had already drawn the katana out. All the ninja were mesmerized by the blade. It was a pure white blade almost like ice, which had the kanji for all the element near the hilt. Along the blade on one side was a crimson 9-tailed fox and down the other side was the kanji for Tajenso. Then almost as soon as the blade was drawn, Naruto just sheathed it. The blade moving so fast that all anybody saw was a flash of white. Slowly turning around and walking away as she sheathed the blade, Naruto smirked. Of course the thugs were confused for a second before they all started the charge again, one of them shouting at Naruto. "Ah, can't even use that sword of yours, prop." Whatever he was going to say was cut off as his body slowly fell apart into tiny pieces, no piece bigger than 10 inches. Then as soon as Naruto sheathed the adachi completely, all of the thugs fell apart in similar mangers as the first one. The only person left was Gato, trembling at seeing this one kid kill all 400 of his mercenaries with just one sword slash. Naruto just started to walk back to the group of ninjas and smiled as he walked past Zabuza and right to Haku. "Are you okay, Haku-chan? You didn't get hurt too much, I hope?" Haku just nodded as the full situation slowly made its way into everybody's mind. Once it did, Haku just blinked once and jumped towards Naruto, wrapping her arms around him and doing something that surprised everybody, including herself. She kissed him fully on the lips. Beto, seeing this, decided it was the perfect chance to kill the blonde brat. He drew out his hidden dagger and made his way towards Naruto with the intent to kill him. However, before he could even get halfway, his legs fell out from under him. Upon looking down, he saw that his legs had been removed at the knees, slowly bleeding out, so he did the only thing he could think of. He screamed at the top of his lungs, which were apparently almost as large as the pink banshee's lungs. Upon hearing the loud scream, all the ninjas turned to see Geto, except for Haku and Naruto, as they were still busy kissing, only to slowly separate as the need for air took hold. "Well, that was unexpected, but certainly was enjoyable, my Yuki-hime," Naruto said, smirking as Haku blushed a shade of red that nobody knew existed, "but it will have to wait until I deal with Geto before we continue." Slowly making his way towards a shaking Geto, Naruto's grin just increased slowly as he made his way there. Once he was fully in front of Geto, the grin threatened to split his face. "Well, Geto, looks like you've become even more of a midget, huh?" he said, slowly drawing his adachi again. Geto just paled as he saw the sword and stared up at Naruto. Please, don't kill me. I can give you anything you want, money, women, land, whatever you want, just don't kill me." He pleased to Naruto, who simply struck a thinking pose with a hand under his chin. "Okay, you give me all your money that is from the people in Wave, and I won't gut you with my sword, deal?" he asked, and Geto just nodded and slowly with a shaky hand reached into his pocket and gave him a piece of paper with something written on it. "That is all you need to know to get your money," he said in a shaky voice, to which Naruto nodded and took the paper, pocketing it. And then sheathing his sword. "Good, then I won't gut you with my sword," to which Geto sighed in relief. "It was until now say hell to the Shinigami when you meet him," Naruto said, and he formed what looked like a Rasengan in his hand, but had a white glow to it, to which Naruto slammed into Gato's head, obliterating it. After that he simply turned back to the rest of the ninja and smiled. "Well, what are you waiting for? Let's go back to Tizuna's and rest, we can finish the bridge tomorrow." That shook everybody out of their surprise, to which they all nodded, and slowly their brains started rebooting. Then everybody's face changed to show something different when they fully understood it all. Haku was smiling as she jumped up and hugged Naruto. Zabuza was grinning and just nodded. Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura were just staring at Naruto in complete and utter disbelief, and many wanted questions going through their heads, to which Kakashi voiced them first. "Naruto, what the hell was that? You're supposed to be dead. How are you alive? Where did you get all the clothes and sword? What the hell happened to the mercenaries?" Naruto just sighed and gave Haku a quick kiss before looking at Kakashi. "Well, that was me killing Geto and his mercenaries. I'm alive because I almost can't die. The clothes and sword I've always had, and for the mercenaries, I just used a technique I invented about 6 years ago and killed them all. I call it the Jijin Kirite. So, any more questions?" he asked, looking around slowly. "You have a bloodline? Since when?" Kakashi asked. "Wrong, I don't have a bloodline, I have two, and since I was 3 for the first one and 8 or so I believe, and before you ask, no, I won't tell you what they do, as that information is only for someone like the Hokage or something of high enough rank to request to ask for." Kakashi, being the ever voice of reason, just glared at Naruto. "What do you mean high enough rank? In case you forget, Genin, I'm a Jonin, thus I'm higher rank than you, so I order you to tell us." Sasuke and Sakura just stood off to the side looking smug that they were finding out some of the Baka's secrets to steal for themselves, or in Sakura's case, steal for Sasuke. Naruto just grinned. "That's where you're wrong, as I may be a genin in ninja rank, however I'm also the clan head of 2 of the founding clans of Konoha, and if you knew your laws, that means I can only be ordered around by the Hokage, so kindly shut the fuck up, Haddock." Nobody could believe that happened, especially not Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura, the latter just running up to Naruto with a fist raised. "Naruto Baka, don't insult Kakashi-sensei, you're just a no-clan idiot who is nothing compared to Sasuke-kun," and with that she brought her first down to try and hurt Naruto, however just sidestepped in, carefully taking Haku with him. Rotating around Sakura and punching her in the back on the ear till she fell forward onto the ground, unconsciously after she heard what Naruto said. "That was for attacking a clan head. I could have easily just had you killed or thrown in jail, and just so you don't get any more stupid ideas, I'm the clan head of the Namikaze clan, along with the Uzumaki clan, 2 of Konoha's founding clans, so if you try that again, you will be killed." Sasuke, being the ever-smart voice of reason, just smirked, as if dope, "You're just a clan less idiot who can't compare to me. Now I demand you give me that sword, along with that ice bitch you're holding, so she can help me repopulate my clan." You wish Team Haku and Zabuza, and from his moment under the protection of my clans, so if you do anything to them, it'll make you wish Itachi had killed you along with your clan. In response to this, another Naruto just appeared out of a pop of smoke behind Sasuke and smacked him over the head with his adachi, rendering him unconscious. Kakashi and his during this whole thing imitating a fish, realizing what he had done, I just tried to kill sensei's son, and I've hated forever for the Kyuubi, which he had no choice in the matter, I'm worse than trash. As for Zabuza and Haku, well those two couldn't be happier now that they get a chance to join Konoha and were under Naruto's protection, so that even if they weren't allowed to join as ninja, they could stay as civilians. After knocking Sasuke out, Naruto, who was still holding Haku at this point, simply turned and walked away from everybody towards Tazuna's house. Zabuza followed with Tazuna, leaving Kakashi to handle Sasuke and Sakura and bring them back. 1 week later, the Great Naruto Bridge. It had been a week since the Battle of the Bridge, and everybody was ready to leave Wave Country to head back to Konoha. During the week they stayed there, Naruto got to know Haku and Zabuza better, to the point where he even asked her to marry him eventfully. Needless to say, Haku was so shocked that she fainted when she finally came to about 2 hours later. She immediately accepted and he gave her a beautiful ring. It was all gold ring with a white flower made of crystal, which had a fairly good-sized sapphire diamond in the center of the flower. Naruto had bought it out of one of the jewelry shops that had reopened after Geto died. That was another thing that changed. After Geto died, Naruto went to his hideout the next day and took everything from there. He then proceeded to give back everything to the people of Wave Country. Needless to say, they were extremely happy and named Naruto as a national hero of Wave Country, deciding to name the bridge after him. Kakashi, after finding out just Wo's son Naruto was tried to repair the damage had done to Naruto, the results were less than pleasant, as Kakashi still felt the slash his Adachi had given him on his arm. It was proof enough that Kakashi would never be forgiven by Naruto for all that he did to him. As for Sasuke and Sakura, well, Naruto decided to keep those two unconscious. That's why now they were being carried by Kakashi's shadow clones. After they awoke the first time, Sakura and Sasuke had tried to attack Naruto, Haku and Zabuza once again, which resulted in both having broken arms and a few broken ribs, which Haku refused to heal or even lessen the pair for both of them. So this is where he find everybody, getting ready to leave Wave Country to head back to Konoha. So after a teary goodbye from Inari, who promised to get stronger, they all left and traveled on the Ninja Highway, aka through the trees to head back towards Konoha, which would take them about 3 days, with Sasuke and Sakura's extra weight. 3 days, that's how long it had taken the group of Kakashi, Naruto, Zabuza, Haku and an unconscious Sasuke and Sakura to get from Wave Country to Konoha, and most of the people in said group were happy, yet for 2 of them it was not so. Zabuza and Naruto were those 2. Zabuza, most people would understand, being a missing nin and all, he was expecting to get attacked upon first sight. Now most people would find it odd that Naruto was one of those 2, but after finding out how exactly he ended up sealed, well, the best term he could come up with was, inside himself, he was pissed. Well, maybe pissed was a slight understatement, and remember he did, well, with a little help. Flashback 2 days ago. It had been a single day since they left Wave Country, and everybody was getting ready to take a break, since they had no real time limit to get back. Why rush it, was the reasoning. So, here we find Naruto sitting up on a high tree branch with his back against a tree. Haku, who was curled up against his chest, was sleeping peacefully, so after making sure she wouldn't fall, Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated, focusing on entering his mindscape and to locate Hikari. Naruto's mindscape. Slowly Naruto opened his eyes to find himself inside that familiar sewer we all know and love. So slowly getting up off the ground, he started out of his venture to find the Kyuubi. What seemed like a few hours later, which was in reality was just a few minutes, Naruto entered into the familiar room for the Kyuubi cell, and lo and behold, there she was, standing just inside the bars, waiting for Naruto to arrive. "Welcome back, master, finally decided to pay a little old me a visit?" she asked in a sweet voice that still reminded him of singing, to which he nodded. "Hi, Hikari-chan, but before we get down to business, I need to do some remodeling in this place." So he closed his eyes and focused. Upon opening them he smiled as it worked, for before him was a giant grassy clearing that stretched further than the eye could see. Off in the distance you could see a huge forest that surrounded the clearing on all sides. Further past the forest you could see some mountains with snow on the tops. In the center of the plain was huge lake with crystal clear water. Off near the other side of the lake was a small hot spring, which seemed big enough for about 10 people to sit easily. Yea, small indeed. All around both of them was flowers of all kinds that separated to it, created a path from their point to the lake. Up in the sky was a not too bright setting sun, as when the sun was setting was his favorite time to watch it from the Hokage mountain. He was just about to turn around when he was jumped on by Hikari, which sent them both falling to the ground with her on top of him, repeating thank you. Over and over, looking her over. The only difference was the collar that now adorned her neck, which had the kanji for seal on one side, along with his name on the other, which made him think up a lot of possibilities to use it for, however those would have to wait until later. Not that this isn't welcomed Hikari-chan, I need you to get up for a bit, I need to handle a few things, for which I need the mobility of my limbs, but we can resume this later if you want, it's not like you haven't had the idea before. Blushing up a storm, Hikari got up off him while stuttering out apologies about knocking him over, to which he just waved it off. Right now let's take a trip down memory lane, literally, then we can think about what happens next, deal? Good, now let's go. Turning around they both walked away to the forward surrounding the clearing, which they entered and walked for a bit, finally reaching what he wanted, which was a tree, at least 6 times bigger than all the other ones around, and oddly enough it had a door on it. Which Naruto followed by Hikari entered. This was his tree of memories, showing everything he ever knew or saw, it was all stored here. Upon entering, they were assaulted by orange, horridly bright orange, all the doors in this section of the hall were orange, which they assumed to be memories from when he was sealed, because that was the only time he wore so much orange. Turns out they were right when they viewed a few of the memories, so they just started their walk once more, walking for about an hour. Every now and then they came upon a mark on the wall which signified the age of the section they were entering. They had already passed 14, 13, 12, 11, and had now entered 10 for about 10 doors when they noticed that the orange had vanished to be replaced by multicolored doors, so picking the nearest one, which was the starting point of the orange, as half of the door was covered in orange. They both entered and they found the memory they wanted, the moments before, during and after the sealing. Memory age 10. Upon entering the memory they noticed that oddly, they seemed to be viewing it from a third-person point of view, which suited the both perfectly fine. When the memory started they saw young 10-year-old Naruto running up the stairs in what they noticed was the Hokage tower. Upon passing one of the doors, which the 2 older personas noticed was the council room, he heard talking. Which was about him. So, when are we going to kill him? That damn demon brat has gotten in the way of too many of our plans, Hess helping the old monkey getting his backbone back and Hess taking away our power, one of the voices shouted out, not knowing he was being overheard. Calm down, we're going to put the plan into action in a week's time. The old monkey will be out of the village for a diplomatic mission with Suna, the demon won't have any protection then, so we can easily capture him, another said, which Naruto, both the young and old, instantly recognized as that old one-eyed one-armed man who visited the Hokage every now and then. Not believing what he was hearing he gasped loudly, a little loudly as some of the people in the room heard him and ran to the door to see him, to which they grinned. Well, looky here, the demon brat came to use himself, how nice, now we don't have to wait a week to kill you. He reached out and grabbed Naruto, dragging him into the council room. Slowly the memory went black as the older Naruto and Hikari stepped out of the room, now that the memory was finished. Memory end. When the memory ended both Naruto were leaking killer intent like it was nothing, then they both vowed to make sure all the civilian council die slow and painful deaths, as in the brief second Naruto was dragged into the room and it went black they saw, and it was just the civilian council and the elders in the room, not the ninja council or the clan heads, which they were thankful for. Upon leaving the forest and being back in the clearing, Naruto's killer intent stopped now that he remembers something and turned to Hikari, grinning widely. "Oh, Hikari-chan," he said in a sweet voice, "time for your punishment." To which Hikari's killing intent froze and she gulped and tried to talk, but all that came out was a stutter. Master, I've bbn goud, kaen you, make an exception." To which Naruto shook his head slowly. "Sorry, but if I make an exception this time, then y'all think you can do whatever you want and receive no punishment, so let's get started," Naruto replied with a foxy grin. Hikari out of instinct, used her hands and tails to cover her ass. Once she saw that grin, she had hoped that he somehow forgot, but was not lucky enough. Flashback end. So this is where we find out young Blonde and his group slowly making their way towards the gates, Naruto in front with Haku, Zabuza behind them, and Kakashi in the back with a shadow clone. They both were carrying the unconscious forms of both Sasuke and Sakura. Upon reaching the gate, 2 Anbu appeared out of nowhere. One with purple hair and a Neko cat mask and the other with brown hair and a Tora tiger mask, with their katanas drawn and were staring at Zabuza, ready to attack at a moment's notice. The Neko-masked Anbu was the first to speak up. "Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the hidden mist, what do you think you are doing here?" Slowly they stepped towards him, getting ready to attack, and they would have if it wasn't for one genin turned clan head. Now Neko-chan, no need to try and kill Zabuza, Hess actually here to try and join the Leaf Village, won't be good for business if we were killing our own potential ninja recruits, nah? He asked, tilting his head to the side as he watched her, to which Neko just turned her head to look at Naruto and did a double take upon seeing his new appearance. Then Naruto-kun, you're back to normal. She asked with what the rest of the people around could tell was hope in her voice. Naruto just smiled and nodded his head to her, then in an instant everything changed. Both Anbu had sheathed their katanas and Nico had vanished, only to reappear hugging Naruto incredibly tightly. "You're back. You have no idea what it was like watching you be an idiot. What happened? How did you get back to normal? Are you okay?" She just kept firing off questions incredibly fast that almost nobody could hear her. Slowly reality started to make its way back into her head as she dropped Naruto, and even though she had a mask on, you could tell she was blushing bright red. "Well, not that I didn't like that, Yuga-chan, we have some things we need to take care of first. If I remember correctly, the council should be in session right now, correct?" The now newly dubbed Yugao just nodded her head. "Well then, let's to visit them, shall we?" Look back over his shoulder to the other Anbu, Haku, Zabuza, Kakashi and the two unconscious genin, he just smirked. "Well, are you coming or not?" And with that Naruto and Yugao walked past the gates towards the Hokage Tower, not waiting for the rest to catch up with them. Council room 10 minutes later. As the group approached the council room, everybody could hear shouting coming from the room, which surprised none of the conscious people as they knew what could go on in the meetings. Slowly with a grin on his face, Naruto walked right up to the closed doors and lifted up one foot, then he slammed it into the doors, blowing them off their hinges and making the doors fly into the council room. Down along the giant table and past the Hokage, one door on either side of his head and fly out of the window on the wall behind him. "Sorry, I'm not late, am I?" Naruto said as he walked into the room with everybody followed him. Looking around the room he grinned in satisfaction at the faces of everybody in the room. The council room was a rather large room, bigger than most would assume. In the middle of the room was a long table with multiple seats on either side of it. At the end of the table, opposite the doors and in front of the window sat the Hokage. On either side of him, starting off the sides of the table was the elders. Heading down the left side of the table was the clan heads, Aburam, Akamichi, Nara, Yamanaka, Hyuga, Sarutobi, Inyazuka and Kurama clans. There was also empty seats for the Namikas, Uzumaki, Uchiha, Haddock and Senju clans. On the other side of the table were the people representing the civilian council. Almost immediately all of the civilians jumped to their feet and started yelling at him, but none was louder than the Banshee known as the Haruno. "What are you doing here, demon? You are not welcome in this place." This resulted in almost everybody losing their hearing. Naruto grinned after he regained his hearing. "A demon, huh? How would you all like to meet a demon for real?" He asked with a shit-eating grin, making all who knew Naruto pale considerably. However the civilians weren't so smart and decided to continue their yelling. "Why would we need to see another demon for real when the Kyuubi is standing in front of us? Now let's kill it while it's weak." The civilians shrieked, to which Naruto smiled. "Well, let me show you an even better demon." Before anybody could ask what was going on he bit his thumb and went through the hand signs, then proceeded to slam his hands on the ground. Fuchius no Jutsu. Kyuubi no Kitsune. Instead of the normal puff of smoke from a summon, there was a bright flash of red light, making everybody close their eyes and turn away to avoid being blinded. When they looked back everybody was shocked at what they saw. Standing in front of Naruto and snarling at them all was the Kyuubi, however there were a few differences. For one, the Kyuubi was only half as tall as the room and only held two tails behind itself. Immediately all of the ninja pulled out some form of weapon to prepare for an attack, while the civilians just wet themselves from seeing the Kyuubi for the first time. "Well, you said you wanted to kill the Kyuubi, here's your chance, go ahead, I'm going to love seeing you civilians attack and head her," Naruto said, smirking. Once he said that almost all the civilians wet themselves again, well except for the Haruno head, she somehow managed to regain control of herself. "Anbu. Kill them, demon. Don't let it get away," she screeched. Of course the Anbu didn't respond as they were too busy trying not to wet themselves as well. Looking around she noticed that nobody was moving, not even the Kyuubi itself was moving, except for the swishing of her tail slowly. Naruto just glanced towards the Kyuubi and smiled at her. "Hikari-chan, can you please eat her for me?" he asked in a sweet voice, to which, to the shock of everybody in the room, including Sasuke and Sakura who woke up during the Banshee Fest, the Kyuubi nodded. "Hi, master, one dead Banshee coming up," she responded in that normal loud booming voice that scared everybody. Then in an instant the Kyuubi had crossed the room and was closing her jaws around the Haruno Banshee, killing her instantly. After finishing her chewing, Hikari glanced towards Naruto. "Thanks.